Welcome to the Overlady Reads, the show where I, the Overlord Jeebus, has a wife, the Overlady, who reads, and you read Words of Radiance.
Part 3.
Part 3. I'm Ben, this is Lucy,
Hi.
and if you hadn't seen Part 1 and 2, well, those were posted last week, and so you should find those in the description somewhere. We don't know how many parts we're going to cover in this video, so just like whatever it says in the title, that's what we cover in this video, because you've written a lot of notes on Part 3. And so we might have to, this might just be part 3 on its own. We'll see.
There's a lot that happens in part 3. It's hard not to write a lot of notes.
Yes, part 3 of Words of Radiance is fantastic, so it's completely understandable.
It's not as good as part 4.
I mean, yes, oh yes, I forgot. You definitely preferred part 4, didn't you?
Tell you what, let's just do like 5 minutes on part 3 and then we'll just move to part 4.
Oh yeah, some characters had a fight, and then part 4 time. Cool, right, so part 3. What happens in part 3 of Words of Radiance, Lucy?
Right. So it starts with Caledon.
Yep.
Who, after the failed assassination attempt, he's taken himself out onto the Shattered Plains for a little bit of like reflection, quiet time.
Yeah.
Practice with his shard blades and plates, because he realizes that even though he's really good, he's not that good.
Yes.
Because that assassin is something else.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously a lot happened in that fight that he's not encountered before. So he's just trying to work it all out.
Okay.
And as he's out on the plains, he looks over and sees the soulcasters setting up white tents.
Yes, you see your soul casting for
yeah,
by the Ardents for the first time here, don't you?
Yeah, because normally soul casting happens at night because they obviously don't like people seeing what they're doing and knowing how it works. So he sees them setting up in the day and he's like, that's weird. So he goes over to check out what's going on. And his future mother
oh yes
is there helping out, because obviously she's testing out one of her new devices, because Navani is really cool.
Yes.
And she makes these like amazing like soul casting Fabrial devices, because she's amazing.
I'm glad you love Navani. Navani is a very, very good lady.
And she's testing out her new like archer towers.
Yes.
So they're these big wooden round archer enclosures.
Yeah.
That the archers stand around the perimeter in, and they float in the middle of the air.
Yes. So
not only can the enemy's arrows not reach them, but because there's no like ladders to climb, there's no tower, they can't get to them.
Yes.
Like, that's an amazing idea.
It's very, very cool. Yeah, the conjoined fabrials, like the way that the span reeds use, ones that conjoined, and then those use the reverser ones. Fantastic stuff. There's a lot of potential there. People who've been reading the Rhythm of War chapters will see where those go eventually.
Yeah. So she's testing those out, and
regarding the soulcasters though, do you see the soulcasters when Caledon is watching them put their tent up, or does he just see the tents and goes, okay, they must be soulcasting?
No. Because he's one of the Colin family higher ups. They soulcast around him because obviously he
owns them basically.
Yeah. Well, his family owns them, so he's part of it. So they soulcast in front of him, and they are creating these gigantic like stone windbreakers.
Yes.
So like these big stone ramps to break the winds from the high storm.
Yeah. So
they can use more of their war camp without it getting wrecked by the winds whenever they come in.
And does he describe the people? The people doing the soul casting. Do you remember?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? Okay, that's fine.
Sorry.
That's okay.
So him and Navani talk for a little bit.
Yeah.
And they just sort of like hash some issues that they have with each other out.
Yes.
And then in the next scene, it's a meeting between... it's a meeting talking about the failed assassination attempt.
Yes, yeah.
And obviously what they can do to try and counteract it. And it's decided that they just need to get their hands on more shard armor and blades. Yeah. It's a meeting between all of the high princes from all of the different war camps. Yeah. And Caledon, during the break time, goes around trying to challenge the other high princes.
Okay.
and no one will take him up on his offer because they're all in cahoots with Sadius, who's told them, don't battle him.
Yeah.
We need shard plates for when we overthrow them.
Yes.
So he eventually manages to get Elite like really riled up and like angry. He's the cousin of one of the High Lords.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I thought you were saying elite. I'm like, the elite what?
No, sorry. He's like one of the High Lord's cousins.
Yeah.
He's got himself some shard
plates, blades.
Blade. I think he's got a blade as well.
Yeah.
But essentially, he starts getting really angry, and Adolin uses that to his advantage, and he's like, right, tell you what, you battle me.
Yeah.
For your plates,
yeah,
and I will give you all 5 pieces of the Colon armor.
Ooh.
So no, he takes that, obviously.
Yes.
And his cousin comes up and he's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why? So at that point, I had a feeling that because there was 5 pieces on offer, it was going to go wrong for him.
You were convinced he was going to lose this duel.
I was convinced that he was going to lose this duel because that's so much like at stake.
Now, just to specify, this isn't the what they're called.
This isn't the awesome one at the end.
Yes,
no.
This isn't the disadvantaged duel. This is a normal duel.
Yeah, this is the one before that one.
Yes.
He then is talking to Sadius.
Yeah.
And Sadius is really like winding him up and making him angry.
Yeah.
And he stood there like, man, I just want to punch this guy in the face.
Yeah.
But then he manages to contain himself.
Yeah.
He looks over.
For now.
He looks over and his dad and Navani are talking to this young girl that's like just walked through the room.
Yes.
And she's got this beautiful, like, long red hair. And he's like, man, she is hot. Excuse me, Sadius, I need to go and check that out. So he goes over.
He's like, oh boy, here I go courting again.
But I'm going to cover that meeting properly when I talk about Shallan.
Okay.
Because that's sort of more Shallan. He's just sort of watching her being attractive.
Yeah.
So then in the next scene with Adolin, it's him going out pretending to be Dalinar to meet Ashoni.
Yes.
So he's there and he goes to meet her thinking that they're going to talk about...
Hash it out a bit,
talk about the Parshendi surrendering, because that's the impression he got last time he met her.
Yeah.
Since then, she's been through a high storm and she's now in storm form. Super excited for that one.
Yeah.
So he gets out there and she's like, mate, we're going to destroy you. There are going to be no humans left when we're done. You don't even know what's about to happen, but we will take you out.
Yeah.
He's like, so surrender?
He's like, so is that what you wanted to tell me? Like, cool.
And he's got a scribe with him, and Dalinar and Navani are telling the scribe what Adolin should say.
Yeah.
And they're just like, mate, this isn't going to go anywhere. Just come back. We'll regroup. We'll talk about it, because they clearly have just brought you out here to taunt you.
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing.
It makes me really sad to know the changes that Ashoni went through in Stormform. Is that she's just not her anymore. And it's like...
She is her.
Yeah.
Her is just trapped.
Yes.
And screaming.
Yeah.
And whatever has taken control of Ashoni is like not Ashoni anymore.
It's not Ashoni, and it makes me very sad because I really like Ashoni.
I really liked her.
Yeah.
She was good.
This isn't the last we've seen of her. Do you not worry?
No. So then he gets back to the camp, and it's very much decided that the next time they fight the Parshendi is going to be the last time they fight them. So they make a plan that after the last high storm of the year, it's the Weeping, which is just where it rains for like
4 weeks.
4 weeks non-stop. But that means that there's guaranteed no high storms.
Yeah.
So they're going to use that opportunity to travel through the plains, find the Parshendi, and just obliterate them.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way they're going to end this war. Yeah. And that's how they're going to fulfill the Vengeance Pact.
Yeah.
So that's decided. And then the next Adolin chapter, Adolin is dueling Elite.
Yes.
And I love how he does this duel.
How does he do this one?
So the last one, he obviously...
kind of lost his cool a bit.
And he just punched the guy until he got the plates off.
Yeah.
In this one, the other guy is like throwing himself at Adolin.
Yeah.
And Adolin is just calmly sort of like staying calm, keeping quite still, and is just like slowly slashing away at the different plates.
Yeah.
And he manages to get enough cuts in all of the plates where it's not noticeable.
Yeah.
But they are like seconds away from shattering. One more hit on each plate and they would go.
Yeah.
So he just sort of stands there and he pushes the guy over.
Yes, I remember now. Because he just hits each bit individually, until it just all drains of shot. Yes, I remember.
So he pushes this guy over.
Yeah.
He falls to the ground. His plates shatter.
Yeah.
It's like, well, Adolin's the winner.
Yeah.
So Adolin gets his plates and he's in his like waiting area.
Yeah.
After the battle. And he's talking to Navani and Dalinar, and they're like, that's great. Hopefully we can get a couple more pieces.
Yeah.
All good. Shallan comes in, and she's like, wow, you're so amazing. And he's like, yeah, I am.
Yeah, he's like...
Should we, And then Relis storms in, demanding that Adolin is not claim the victor anymore, because Adolin didn't fight fair.
Yeah.
And it was a sham and it was a setup, and he's humiliated his cousin, which means that they've humiliated their family.
Yes.
At that point, this is a personal vendetta now. And Adolin's like, well, if it's personal, let's fight.
Yeah, well, let's duel then.
Let's duel then. I will give you our 5 plus his 1. Bring me whoever you want, we will fight.
Yeah.
And the duel master's like, Adolin, are you sure? And he's like, I know the rules.
He's like, well, because this is the disadvantaged duel.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I'll have a disadvantaged duel. I'll fight 2 people, yeah.
No. He specifically says, bring anyone you want, I will fight them.
Yes.
In his head, he thinks that's 2 people.
Yeah. I
immediately, as soon as that conversation was gone, I was like, oh no, he's going to turn up with like every single high prince. There's going to be like 8 against 1, and he's just going to lose everything. Like, that was my initial thought, and I was like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Can the next battle be like the next chapter?
I love the lead up to the duel. The duel is like the high point, it is an extreme high point to me, and just the lead up to it, I'm like, it's great.
Yeah. So that's the end of Adolin's chapters.
For now.
No, because that's Caledon's chapters.
Oh, okay.
So we get to cover that in Caledon.
Okay, we'll do Shallan next, and then we'll do Caledon last.
I'm too excited.
I know. I'm like getting rid of it. I just want to talk about the duel.
Like, genuinely, the second that the duels were like announced at the beginning of the book, I was so pumped for them.
Yeah.
And they've not let me down so far.
All of them have been great.
I've gone from Adolin being like a nothing kind of spoiled prince background character.
You didn't care anything about him in Way of Kings.
No, well, he was just the good-looking guy that just every day had a different girl hanging off of him, and he was just another light eyes prince.
Yeah.
To him being really cool, and I now love Adolin.
Yes.
And like, I'm rooting for this guy so much.
Yes, good.
So yeah, let's go to Shallan.
Let's do Shallan, shall we?
So at the start, she's on her way to the Shattered Plane still.
Yeah.
She's just killed Tyne?
Yes. Tin. I say Tin. You say Tyne. That's fine.
I don't know.
So before we started doing this, I always used to get really annoyed at Kate Redding and Michael Kramer, because they do the audiobooks.
Yeah.
And they're married in real life, and they pronounce words differently. And it used to really annoy me, because I'm like, do they not talk to each other about these books and like agree on pronunciations? And yet here we are with Tyne and Tin. Will you do the exact thing that I complain that they do, which is Sadius and Sadius? And that's the exact thing that they do that annoys me. And I'm like, well, okay, I apologise, Kate and Michael, for every time I've complained about you mispronouncing things differently. Or pronouncing things differently.
I can't do words at all.
Yeah.
And there's too many like words.
there's a lot of words in these books.
A lot of words.
There's like 1.5 million so far.
Who would have thought it? So yeah, she's about to enter into the war camps, and she's sort of like put on a bit of a show.
Yeah.
She's managed to get like quite a nice looking carriage. She's got her servants who are like the slaves that she paid for.
Yeah.
She's got her guards around her. So she looks like...
She looks the part.
Yeah, she looks the part. So she's on her way to go and find Dalinar because she thinks he's going to be her best sort of way into this.
Yeah.
And she discovers that he's currently meeting with Elhokar. So she's like, right, to the castle.
Yeah.
So they go to Elhokar's war camp palace. And she just waltzes in, and the guards are like, hey, what's going on here? And she's like, I'm supposed to be here. I'm Adolin's fiance.
Yeah.
Don't you even know who I am?
Yeah.
So she just entirely, like, walks her way up to the room that they're, like, all of the High Princes are meeting in.
Yeah.
She doesn't realise that at the time. They get to the corridor, and it's filled with all of the different guards for all the different High Princes. And standing directly in front of the door is Caledon. So she walks up to him and demands to be let into the room, and he's like, no. You're that horny-to princess from the plains that stole my boots, and you're trying to tell me that Adolin's engaged to a horn-eater? I'm not buying that. And she's like, no. So they literally have a shouting match.
Yeah.
They're throwing insults back and forth. All of the guards around them are like awkwardly looking away because Caledon, this dark eyes nobody, is starting a fight with this light eyes like high princess.
Yes.
And it's wonderful.
It's great.
And she gives him the transcript from her Navani and Yasna's last conversation. Yeah. And she's like, look, give this to Navani. It's proof that I am who I am because there's no way I could have this otherwise. Yeah. And he's like, no. No. Yeah. And so she makes enough of a scene where she knows that even if she gets turned away,
they'll know she was there.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, it will get fed back to Dalinar one way or another, and he'll come and find her. Luckily, Caledon is like, right, I'm just going to go in and find out. Yeah. So he goes to speak to Navani. Navani is like, yes, send her in. I need to know what happened to my daughter. So Caledon comes back and he's like, just go. Yeah. So she walks into the room and like she's used Stormlight to make herself look more attractive. Okay. Like subconsciously. Yeah. But it sort of like makes her look a bit more regal, a bit more princess-like. Yeah. Makes her appear slightly older. Yeah. Like makes her dress not look as ripped up as it was. Yes. So she walks into the room and like everyone is like, wow.
Who dat?
Who dat?
Yeah.
Adolin is especially like that. So she goes over to speak to Navani and Dalinar, and she tells them what happened to Yasna. Explains that she's really sorry for what happened. Yeah. Tells them about the ship sinking after she had been stabbed. Yeah. And Navani is not happy. Navani...
Understandably.
Obviously. But she's like, no, Yasna could have come back from that. You killed my daughter. By sinking the ship, you killed her because she could have survived that. And Shallan's like, no, she was very dead before I did it. And Dalinar's like, Navani, she literally had no choice. She's an unarmed young girl, ship full of pirates. Yeah. This was the smart move, and we both know it. Yeah. So Navani storms out, because obviously she's very upset. Yes. All of this time, she's been convinced that Yasna's just going to walk through the door and be fine. Yeah. She's now had it confirmed to her that her daughter is dead. Yeah. So she's obviously upset. Yeah. So she leaves, and Dalinar's like, no, she needs to grieve. We'll give her time. We'll give her a bit of space. Yeah. So he stays to talk to Shalana about, obviously, the fact that she's engaged to his son. Yeah. At which point Adolin comes over.
And he's all like, hey guys, what's going on here?
They have this like awkward like little flirting moment. And Dalinar's like, oh no, he likes the look of her.
It's like, uh-oh.
Great. So Dalinar sends him off and he speaks to Shallan and he is like, well, why should this continue? Like, you're a no one. And so she points out that obviously Yasna thought that this would be a good union. And on Yasna's word, Dalinar agrees to continue the union between Shallan and Adolin.
Excellent.
Much to both of their delight.
Yes.
He offers her a place in his camp as one of his scribes.
Scribes, yeah.
And before she can say anything, the meeting starts back up. So she sort of like goes and hides in the corner of the room. But then one of the high princes talks about her and is like, well, you've just brought in this informant from this place that we know is currently like in upheaval. So you clearly know more about what's going on there than us, and you're hiding that information.
Yes.
So then all eyes turn on Shallan, and the High Princes kind of start a bidding war over her.
Yes.
Like, oh, why don't you come and stay at my camp, and we can have a little talk about that information of yours.
Because where do they think she's come from? Do they think she's come from Kholinar?
They think she's come from Yaz, her homeland.
Yarkaved. Okay.
Yarkaved.
Oh, so they think she's bought information from Yarkaved.
Yeah.
Cool.
So they all start having this bidding war over her.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, actually, I have an uncle amongst you, and that is...
Sebarial.
And he has already offered me a place in his camp.
And he's like...
And he's offered me a lot of money as well.
And Sebarial's like the only one that wasn't bidding on her.
Well, Sebarial never really...
He just doesn't really care.
He's doing his own thing.
Yeah.
He doesn't really get involved in this stuff. But she's just announced this publicly.
And he's like, what?
Well, because all the other high princes are so interested and he likes winding them up, he's like, I've got a bit of an advantage over them. So he's like, yeah, everything she says is true.
Yep, totes my niece. Yeah.
Yep. So she goes and sits next to him and he's like, I'm not paying you that much though, but that was a bold move.
Yeah.
And she was like, I think you'll find that there's a lot of witnesses that said that you would pay me that much. And he's like, great.
He's like, you better be worth it, whoever you are.
Yeah. So then afterwards she goes back to his war camp with him and he shows her that he doesn't really fight on the shattered plains. Like he sort of like leaves those. He's
like the mercantile one. He doesn't get money from the merchants.
Oh my God.
Okay. He's like the mercantile one. He's like, why would I go on bridge runs when I can just get people to pay taxes for all of the stuff I'm importing?
Yeah.
He's like, they gather the gems for me, and then I get them to pay them to me.
Yeah. Well, not just that, but he's setting up infrastructure. So he's got farms set up so that people will buy food from him, because otherwise it's just soul-casted stuff which isn't that nice to eat.
Yeah.
He's got some little factories set up so he can make cloth and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So he's really like profiting from being here.
Mm-hmm. Sebarial, I love Sebarial.
Yeah.
He's definitely, to my second favourite High Prince, because got Dalinar number one. But definitely second favourite High Prince there. Like,
well, as he said, he can either send men out to die and have to keep paying to replace them.
Yeah.
Or he can do the thing that no one else has thought to do and actually establish a living, working area.
Yeah.
Because they've been here for 7 years at this point. Like, how no one else has started doing this, he doesn't understand. Yeah. But he's rolling in it because of this.
Yeah, he is not suffering at all.
So they go back. She meets Pelona.
Yeah.
Who is his mistress.
Yeah.
Who he's wanted to marry because she is cool.
Because she's the best.
She is.
Yeah.
And she's a dark eyes as well, which is quite surprising because normally, like, light eyes are too good for dark eyes. But Sebarial being as wonderful as he is, he's like, I don't care. She's cool. I like her.
Yeah, she's smart.
We banter.
Yeah, she's smart. He's like, she gives me shit, I give her shit. It's a great time. Pelona
takes Shallan to her rooms that she set up for her.
Yeah.
And leaves her to sort of get it customized. Shallan falls asleep because she is exhausted.
Mm-hmm. It's been a long day.
And when she wakes up, what the spam read that she stole from Tyne is flashing.
Oh, yes.
So she sets it up, and it's a message from the Ghostbloods asking for Tyne to come and meet them that evening.
Yeah.
And she's like, Tyne's ill at the moment.
Yeah.
I'll send my assistant. And they're like...
Immediately, they're like, no.
Yeah. And she manages to convince them to say yes.
Yeah.
So they set up a meeting for like an hour's time at the other side of the war camp. She's like, cool. So she sketches out an illusion of a face and uses Stormlight to mask herself with it.
Yeah.
Love this ability.
Yes.
And then she makes her way over to the meeting point. And it's this, like, old, like, ward house kind of place. And she goes in, and, like, the room they're in is just full of, like, collected memorabilia from all of the different planets.
Yes. You were...
So cool. I spent ages, like, trying to work out where everything was from.
Yeah.
Loved it.
I think you basically immediately turned to me, we were like, is this a room of World Hopper stuff? And I'm like, maybe. And then we kind of went, I think you got... What did you get?
I got
the flower from Nelthus.
Yeah.
You got...
The hair from...
the hair from Ciri or Vivenna
or Vivenna.
Yeah,
one of them.
Yeah. You didn't get the hairpins. You were like, what are the hairpins?
Yeah.
And I was like, they're not hairpins. They are hemolytic spikes.
Yeah.
We assume.
The white sand from White Sand.
Yeah, that one's pretty easy.
Yeah, that's self-explanatory. Oh, there was something else.
There's an Aether from Aether of Night, but I mean, even I haven't read Aether of Night, and you'd never even heard of that as a thing. And because we don't really know what Aethers are, so it's like, cool. There's no way you could have known what that one was.
No.
But yeah.
So she goes into this meeting, and the guy is immediately like,
Who are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why would she send an assistant unless she's scared of us? Like, tell us where she is.
Yeah.
And Shallan's like, no, I'm not giving her location away. Yeah. Like, so she stands up for herself.
Yeah.
And in this room, it's the main guy.
Mraize. Yeah.
And I don't know if there's like one or two people sat around
I think there's one or two, yeah.
But one of them is a woman, and she's got a mask over her face.
Yes.
She's cool.
She is cool.
And
then there's just like another guy.
Yeah.
I can't remember him. He's not important. He's just like a random ghost blood number 4, 5, 6, you know.
He's the expandable one that
exactly.
can just die.
Yeah.
So they have a meeting, and they agree to keep working with time.
Yeah.
So they give Shallan Time's next task,
yeah.
which is to infiltrate the mansion. So then Shallan leaves, and after she's walked a little bit away, she realises that the woman in the mask is following her.
Yes.
And she starts panicking, and she starts trying to sketch a face so that she can disguise herself. But she can't sketch one while she's walking.
Yeah.
So instead she has the idea to sketch a wall. So she goes into an alleyway, throws the wall illusion over her.
Yeah.
Hides behind it. She sees the woman in the mask, like, she hears the woman in the mask going past. And she just waits for like 10, 15 minutes behind this wall until she knows that it's all clear.
Yes.
And at that point she goes back to Sebarial's palace.
Yeah.
And all is good.
Yeah, it's all good.
And then the next Shallan scene is Shallan going on a date with Adolin.
Ooh, is this the High Storm date?
Yeah.
Yes.
So he takes her to this fancy wine bar.
Yeah.
Where it's an outdoor patio. And the idea is that, like, it's the latest Light Eyes fashion.
Yes.
To sit on one of these patios and wait for the High Storm to come in. And then just before it hits you, like, run into the bunkers.
Yeah, yeah.
And obviously they're segregated, boys in one, girls in the other, because you can't mix.
Oh no, heavens no, that'd be so inappropriate.
So they're on this balcony date, and Adolin, well, they're ordering wine, and Adolin is checking out the waitress, and she's like, great.
Yeah.
We're on a date, and he's checking out other girls already. Mm-hmm. This is not gonna work out, is it?
Yeah.
So then he starts trying to impress her by telling her a story of one of his battles where he heroically wins a gem heart on the Shattered Plains. And she's like, your shard plates. What happens if you need to do a poo?
This is one of the best scenes.
It's amazing. And he's so thrown off by this because obviously it's not something that a normal Light Eyes girl would ever ask him. He's like, I have to
just do it.
Just do it
in the shard plate, like, you know.
No. He then goes into detail about how, well, if he's lucky, he can like just remove one of the back pieces do a poo, feel a bit like a child because someone's got to wipe him, or if he really is stuck, he just goes in the plates. And he is completely amazed because obviously this is not something that anyone has ever thought to ask him. He's like, this girl is different, like I am into this. And then she starts asking him about the gem hearts because obviously she has an interest in wanting to sketch one because she's never seen one before. So she does a sketch of what she thinks it might look like based off of these crab creature eggs in the ocean. And he's like, wow, that is almost exactly what it looks like. And she's like, please let me come out on one of your runs so that I can see a live one. And he's like, it's too dangerous, but I can take you to like a freshly harvested one if my dad's willing to take you. And you can see that one. And she's like, it's not as good, but I'll settle for it. And then the high storm comes and she's like, I want to stay. He's like, no, into the bunker.
Like, we should really leave.
So they literally get into the bunkers with like seconds to spare. And he's like, wow, that girl was amazing. I am very into this. I want to see more of her. And then he's in his bunker. Sadius is in there. And he starts winding Adolin up. And Adolin's like, I just want to punch this guy. Someone stop me.
He's like, he holds back, you know, for now. And then,
So, after the high storm's finished, Shallan's already gone back to Sebarial's palace.
You'll get there eventually, I promise.
I won't. And Adolin just goes on a nice little walk so that he can think about her. And he goes to buy her some jewellery.
Aww.
Don't actually ever see her getting this jewellery. So, like, either he's just putting it on for show or she doesn't actually like it.
Or he just decided he liked it more and just kept it for himself, you know?
That's probably the answer. We then next see Shallan as she is sneaking into Sadius's war camp. And in order to do this, she has masked herself as one of Sadius's messenger boys. So she gets to Amaram's manor dressed as him, says that she's got a message for Amaram, so she gets sent in, and as soon as she's in, she disguises herself as one of the maids that she knows will be out on a date at this point. So she's not likely to be seen. So she tries to sneak through the kitchens, up a little staircase into his hidden room. But the cook's in there, and the cook starts, like, challenging her, and the cook sends her to go and do a task in another part of the building. So Shallan instead goes a longer way round into the war room. So she's walking up a staircase, and she gets to the top, and Amaram's there, and she was expecting him to be in a meeting with Sadius, so she's like, She's like, hi, Lord, I'm so glad I ran into you. There's a messenger for you outside. So he's like, okay, cool, it can wait. And she's like, no, it seemed like it was quite an important message. So Amaram's like, fine, I'll go outside and find the person. And as soon as he's gone, she runs up to the room. She uses Patton to lockpick.
Yes, because Patton can manipulate things slightly like
such a cool ability.
It's a very cool ability.
So he lockpicks her way into the room. And it turns out it's a room covered in different maps of like the shattered planes. And it looks like she estimates that he was using these to try and work out where
Go on, you can do it. You can do it. I believe in you.
Euphoria? Urethra?
My god, you're so close. It's Irithiru.
Yeah.
You were so close.
I didn't want to be. So he's trying to find where Irithiru.
Just don't even think about it. Just say it. Irithiru.
Is as well. And there's some writing in like another language. So she sketches that. But then she takes mental notes of all the different parts of the room. She gets out quickly before Amaram can return. She puts the page messenger boy disguise back on.
Yeah.
And she approaches Amaram and she's like, "Sir, I've been looking for you. I got the message."
Yes.
And Amaram's like, "Okay." And she's like, I've been sent by Lady Shallan. She wants to sketch your high plates. Your shard plates.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, of course, who wouldn't?
Who wouldn't want to sketch my shard plates?"
And then obviously having a young little nobody boy to impress, he's like, "Here's my shard blade." And Shallan stares at it and she's like, "I recognise that blade.
Mm-hmm.
That's my brother's blade.
Mm-hmm.
What is Amaram doing with that?"
Yeah.
And she concludes that Amaram must have been the one to kill her brother.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Well, this guy's gonna die."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If only there was someone else that shares her sentiments. So then she leaves. She goes back to her
Sebarial's
palace. And she sketches out everything that she saw in Amaram's war room.
Yeah.
So the next scene with Shallan is her disguised as Vale going into the mountains to meet with the Ghost Bloods.
Is this the first time she makes Vale?
No, she was disguised as Vale when she went to meet the Ghost Bloods originally.
Okay.
And she told them her name was Vale.
Cool.
So now obviously that's the disguise she uses when she interacts with the Ghost Bloods.
Yeah.
So she goes up to the mountains and they're like, "Well, you failed your task, so why?" So that's obviously why Tyne hasn't shown up this time, because you failed. And she's like, "Actually," and then she presents all of the sketches and they're like, "Oh my goodness, like we were staking out every window in his mansion waiting for Tyne to appear and she never arrived. Like, how did you do this?" And she's like, "Talented."
She's like,
and then
it's magic, innit?
And then they're like, "Wow, how did you spend so long in his war room that you were able to sketch these?" And she was like, "Oh, I did them from memory." And they were like, "What?"
They're like, you can sketch things from memory?
Yeah. and she's like, "Damn, I shouldn't have given that one away."
Yes.
So then they test her. They make her look at one of the guys. He then disappears. She sketches him. And she tries not to do it as perfectly as she can. Yeah. But it's a really good sketch.
It's a real good sketch, yeah.
And then she's like, "I'm in trouble now, aren't I?"
Yes. Because they realise that she could have drawn where they met before. And like...
Well, not that, but they're obviously quite impressed. And Maireys is like, "You killed Tyne, didn't you?" And she's like, "Yes." And he's like, "I like you. You can be one of us. Like, you're now in our club."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Okay, cool.
She can hang out with the cool kids now." Yeah.
So then she leaves, and just before she gets in her wagon, she realises that they now know that she can perfectly sketch every single one of them that was on that mountain. She killed one of their members before, and they're quite loyal as a club.
Group, yeah.
And she's like, "I'm in danger." So she just tells the coachman that she's in the coach, just drive. When they get to the camp, just don't even look back. She'll get out, and then after 10 seconds, he can drive off. And she goes and she sketches a boulder, and she pretends to be a boulder at the side of the road.
Yeah.
And a couple of minutes later, the lady in the mask rides off on a horse after her carriage.
Yeah.
And then she returns and all of the Ghost Bloods leave.
Yeah.
So Shallan gives it a few minutes, and then when she comes out, she walks down the road and finds her carriage on fire. She's like, "Cool, I was right to hide myself, I guess."
Yeah. Also, poor coachman. He was just having a nice job. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'll just take these light eyes to this thing and I'm going to ride back. Easy job." No.
Yeah. So that's where we leave Shallan, walking back to the war camp.
Yeah.
Now a member of the Ghost Bloods.
Yeah.
All is good.
And all's good.
And then obviously with it being a Shallan book, the flashbacks of Shallan.
Yes.
So the first one is them at a family feast, and he's invited one of the Light Eyes families from nearby to join them. And he's very much pretending that their family is still wealthy.
Yeah.
And they're not.
Yeah.
And he stands up in the middle of the feast and announces that he's just got married to this girl that's on her way down.
Yes.
And everyone, obviously knowing that he's killed his last wife, doesn't react in the way that he wants them to. They're all a bit stunned.
Yeah.
No one really reacts. So he gets angry, and then they, like, politely clap. They're like, yay!
Like,
yay! And he's like, well, even though you're not happy for me, I have gifts for all of you ungrateful children. He gives all of the boys, like, these beautifully carved, intricate daggers.
Yeah.
And he gives Shallan a pretty silver necklace.
Yeah.
They continue their feast, and the doors burst open.
Yeah.
And, give me a sec, Redin walks in.
Yes! Yes! Good old Redin.
Redin is the bastard son of
the King of Yakaved.
The king.
Well, ex-king of Yakaved.
Well, current king.
Okay, he's not dead yet. No, he's dead at that point.
No, he's not.
I thought Seth kills him in Way of Kings.
This is a flashback.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes.
So the bastard son walks in.
Yeah.
And is like, mate, we need to talk. I'm here to investigate the murder of a Light Eyes woman. And we all know that that's quite a big deal.
Yeah.
And her dad's like, right, guests, leave immediately. Children, go and sit over there. And he's talking with Redin. And he gets very angry. And, like, he shouts at Redin. Redin remains beautifully calm. Redin nicely stands up. He starts walking out of the room, and he pauses in front of the children. Yeah. And he's like, I am here to investigate a murder. At the moment, I need a Light Eyes to testify.
Yeah.
Because that's the last piece of evidence I need. If any Light Eyes happen to
have seen it happen or
know any information,
been in the room,
please feel free to talk to me, and we can make this whole problem go away.
Yeah. And
Balat is about to stand up when he looks over at Dad, and Daddy is giving him a very angry look. Mm-hmm. And Balat's like, he'll kill us if we say anything. Mm-hmm. And, like, shame spren, like, appear around all of the children.
And Redin's like, guys, I can see the shame spren.
Yeah. And he's like, well, I'm leaving now. If anyone happens to remember anything, you're always welcome to come and find me.
Yeah.
And Redin leaves.
Yeah.
And I forgot my favourite part about Redin.
Yes.
Redin has heterochromia.
Heterochromia, yes.
So one of his eyes is light, the other one is dark. So people do not know how to react to him.
Everyone's so awkward around him because they're like, how do you treat someone like this in this society? Yeah. Do you know what? For a character who's been in literally 2 scenes, Redin is so interesting. Like,
I love Redin.
He's in that scene, and he's in the scene later on where Thingy dies.
I want more of him. Yeah, he seems so cool.
I'm really, really worried Brandon has forgotten he exists.
Oh, don't say that.
Because he's so... Is the scene with him and the King and Taravangian? Yeah. That's in this book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't think he's in Oathbringer at all.
Oh.
And so I really hope he turns up in Rhythm of War. Because, like, I'm worried Brandon forgot this really interesting character exists.
The thing is that he's probably in there because someone probably asked what happens if someone has heterochromia.
Yeah.
So he probably is just there to answer that question, and that's it.
And that's it, and he's like, cool.
I like him.
He's really cool. Yeah.
He is.
I hope we get more Redin one day.
Yeah, me too. So the next scene with Shallan is Middlefest. Which is like this cute little, like, medieval style, like, festival that gets held. So Shallan is with Daddy in the dueling box.
Yeah.
And
to like watch the duels.
Yeah. Yeah. And Rividara.
Yeah, I have no idea who this is.
Random guy
comes
in to talk business with Daddy.
Yeah.
And he is very like angry because at this point his family has like no money. Everyone else knows they're taking advantage of them.
Yeah.
He sends Shallan out because he doesn't want her to hear any of this. So she leaves and realizes that, oh boy, I don't have an escort.
She's like, ooh.
I can have some fun.
Yeah.
So she goes past the guards and they're like, shouldn't we accompany you, miss? And she's like,
no.
Go and ask my dad.
Yeah.
And whilst he's off asking her dad, she runs.
Yeah.
So the first thing she does is she finds a young girl called Alita who had come to have dinner at their family home a few weeks or so before.
Yeah.
Maybe months. I'm not 100% on the timeline here.
Yeah.
But her and Balat had been making eyes across the table.
I was going to say, this is Balat's future wife, isn't it? Yeah.
And so she's like, I know how to make Balat happy again. So she finds Alita and gives her a letter that she says is from Balat.
Yeah.
And then she runs off to find Balat. Balat is in the gambling den. And at this point, Jix.
Have you just combined Wickham and Jushu's name?
No.
No?
No,
Okay.
this is a character.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, I thought you'd mixed up the two brothers.
He's only in this one scene.
Okay.
So Jix is...
And you remembered this one person's name?
It's in my notes!
You can't remember Sebarial's name, but Jix. Jix gets remembered.
Jix is 3 letters! Sebarial is like 20!
Okay, so what does Jix get up to?
So...
If Jix doesn't have a Coppermind article, we need to give him one now. Carry on.
That's not enough to give him one, mate. Jix is her guard.
Okay.
And he finally catches up with her. And he's like, I've been looking for you everywhere. You ran off. And she's like, yeah.
She's like, yeah.
I'm looking for the gambling tent. And he's like, girl, you don't want to go in there. And she's like, well, I'm going there, so you can either come with me or you can let me go unattended. And he's like, I'll come with you. It's over there. So they go to this like really seedy tent. It's like patchworked. It's like at the back of the festival where no one really has to go near it.
Yeah.
So she goes in and Balat is over with the Axe Hound fighting.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Staring at them jealously whilst they rip each other apart.
He's watching the Axe Hounds fight and he's like, I wish that was me.
No. He's like, I wish I was doing that.
Okay.
So she goes up to him with a note that she says is from Alita.
Yeah.
And she's like, I got this for you. It's from Alita. She says she wants to meet you at this place in 1 hour's time. He's like, I'm a mess. I need to go and fix myself up. Yeah. And she's like, yeah, off you go.
Off you go. Yeah.
So he goes to fix himself up to get ready for his little date.
Yeah.
And she's like, yay, I fixed Balat. I can keep him happy.
If only. If only.
It kind of does. It's okay.
Yeah.
And then her next task is to... Well, she goes back to Daddy's box.
Yeah.
And he's now in there with a strange man. And the guy, as soon as Shallan walks in, like, drops his glass.
Yeah.
And, like, his eyes go really wide. He's like, oh.
Yeah.
And Shallan's like, who's this weirdo?
Yeah.
And her stepmom, who has been scribing for Dad in the corner, is like, he's a messenger that says that he's got news of Helleram.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, can I hear? And Daddy's like, get out. Don't ever say that name again.
Yeah.
He is officially disowned. I want nothing more to do with this boy.
Yeah.
And she's like, it went well then. The guy that he is meeting with pours some powder into his drink. And she's like, oh, he's about to poison my dad.
Yeah.
But then the guy downs the drink.
That he just poured stuff into, yes.
And it's like, cool, metal bending.
Yeah. Well, you didn't realise to begin with. Well, you wouldn't realise that this was wit to begin with, would you?
No. It makes it quite clear it's wit.
Later on, yeah.
No. From the description of the guy in that scene, you know it's wit.
Okay, cool. Has he got the hawkish face? Or
yeah, like the black uniform.
Yeah.
The eyes, the hair. Like, you know it's wit.
Yeah.
So then she leaves and she goes to find
Wickham? Yes.
Who's refused to leave the carriage. She goes in and he's like, very thin. He's just sort of staring at nothing.
Yeah.
And she's like, hey, I brought you this to cheer you up. And he's like, look, I know what you're doing. It's clearly working for Blah.
Yeah.
It's clearly working for Jushu.
Yeah.
Wickham is like, it won't work for me. It's too late for me.
Yeah.
Like, my time on this planet is done.
Okay.
And she's like, well, I'm going to leave these maths problems for you in case you change your mind.
Yeah.
And then she, like, exits the carriage and she, like, goes to find a stone to, like, sit and cry on. Because obviously...
Yeah.
She's trying so hard to keep her brothers together. And it's difficult. Like, she's only, like, 10 at this point.
She's a little older than that at this point.
She's young.
She's young. She's like 12, yeah.
And her family is falling apart and it's all because Dad.
Yeah.
But there's nothing that she can do about it.
Yeah.
And actually, she's the one that fractured the family to begin with by killing their mum.
Yeah.
Because that's when all the problems really started.
Yeah, so like they all blame Dad, but she knows that
she's the
problem and she can't
so she's
say
trying
anything.
To fix it.
Yeah.
And as she's sitting on this stone, the messenger man is sitting in a tree and he's like, hey there!
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, the message you told my dad about Helaram.
Yeah.
Can you tell it to me? And he's like, no, it was for his ears only. She's like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay. And then he asks her if she ever hears Spreen talking.
Yeah.
And she's like, that's weird.
Why would Spren talk?
Not. They don't talk. And tells her that Helaram is right and that their dad is destroying their family. And she's like,
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they both look back and they see Wickham is doing the maths problems.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're fixing them. Like,
just keep going.
Keep going. It's okay. You're doing well. So then he asks Shallan to think of something that makes her happy. So she closes her eyes and she thinks, like, the thing that would make her happy is if the family was sitting round all together, all of them.
Yeah.
Enjoying a nice meal. Everyone's laughing. Everyone's happy. Everyone's smiling.
Yeah.
And as she does this, Wit holds a sphere up to her face and she drains the stormlight, but nothing happens.
Yeah.
So then he is quite disappointed that nothing happened.
Yeah.
And he's like, you've got to realise the nature of lies in order to unlock something. Yeah. And she's like...
what does that mean?
She's like, that's really weird, mate. What are you going on about? And that's kind of the end of that scene.
Yes. Now, I don't think you picked up on it, because we had a conversation where you were like, this is Wit, and I was like, yes, this is obviously Wit.
Yeah.
And then I was kind of like, hey, let's go back and, so we put something in a drink. And then I think there's a moment after she speaks with Wickham where she suddenly feels a lot better.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you think's happening there, Lucy? And you're like, allomancy? And I'm like, heck yeah. Because he pours some metal into his cup, he drinks it, and then I believe he riots her, or he either riots her, like, feeling better, or he soothes her feeling bad. Yeah. Like, one of the two.
Either way. He makes her happy.
Yeah.
First adult that's ever, like, really shown compassion towards her.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I think her mother was nice to her for a bit.
I don't think it ended well then.
I mean, it obviously didn't end very well, but I think for a time she quite liked it.
But, like, it's been a very long time since anyone's been kind to her.
Yes.
So, in the next flashback scene, Shallan is in the garden sketching, and Wickham approaches her. Yeah. And he's like, you know what? You really helped me. Yeah. I'm feeling better now. Here, take this pouch. I don't need it anymore. Okay. And inside are some blackbane leaves.
Oh, yes.
So he had obviously been carrying them around with him because the longer you carry them, the more potent they become. Yeah. So he was clearly waiting for them to become strong enough to do the intended job. Yeah. And it's the same leaf that Caledon had back in
Way of Kings.
Way of Kings. So she now has this pouch of deadly poison.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, I'm glad you don't need this anymore.
Yeah.
Yay. And then there's a commotion from inside the house. So she goes in to find out what's going on. And Jushu?
Yeah. You get there eventually.
Jushu is tied up and...
Okay.
I know. It's one of those moments.
She's like, no, it's one of these days.
So he's tied up and gagged on the floor. Yeah. Just gets better. There's a couple of men surrounding him.
Man, he's having a great day, it sounds like.
And their daddy's there.
Yeah.
And the men...
Yeah. Yeah.
The men are men that Jushu is in massive gambling debt to.
Yeah.
And they've tied him up and brought him to the manor expecting his dad to pay off his debts.
Yeah.
Because Jushu told them that his dad would.
Yeah.
And his dad's like, no.
Yeah.
I'm not paying for his gambling debts.
If
and
he
they're
got
like,
himself in this situation, he can pay for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, if somebody doesn't pay, we're going to take him. And his dad's like, yeah, take him.
Yeah.
Take him.
Do what we want.
He's not mine anymore.
Mm.
So they take him.
Yeah.
And Shallan's like, Dad, how could you? And he's like, look at our finances.
Yeah.
So she goes to look at the books and realises that they have absolutely no money left.
Yeah.
Like, at all. So she obviously doesn't want to see her brother being taken away like this.
Yeah.
So she runs up to where Balat and Wickham are.
Yeah.
And she's like, give me your daggers. And they immediately do. There's no arguing. There's no anything. They just give her their daggers.
Yeah.
And she runs out of the manor after this wagon, which luckily is being pulled by Chol.
Yeah.
So it's going quite slowly.
It's really slow, yeah.
And she knocks on the door. The wagon stops and the guy's like, what?
Yeah. What do you want?
And she's like, I've got these daggers. They'll be worth money. Can I swap them to pay off his debt? And they're like, it's not really enough. Like, this will only get us like half of the debt.
Yeah.
So she gives them her silver necklace and she's like, please.
Yeah.
And they're like, you really like your brother, don't you? And she's like, he's all I have, please. And they willingly take the daggers and they say the debt's been paid. And they give her back her necklace, which is really sweet.
Yeah.
And they untie her brother. So her and Jushu walk back to the manor and he's like, you know what? I'm not going to gamble anymore. Like, it's clearly not worked for me.
It's clearly not, yeah.
So they get back to the manor and their dad is furious that she's disobeyed him.
Yeah.
So she's back in her room. He realizes what she's done. He comes storming in. He beats one of her maids to like an inch of her life.
Yes. Being like, I won't beat you, but I will beat the people around you.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
He's like, you do this to me again and more people will get hurt and you're responsible for it.
Yeah. And it's like, wow, he is not a good man.
Yeah. So at that point, I had two theories about why he won't beat Shallan.
Okay.
Because he doesn't seem to mind beating women.
Yeah.
He's made that quite clear because he's just beaten up the maid.
Yeah.
So I thought that either he was expecting to sell her off for good money when she was a bit older.
Yeah.
And obviously doesn't want to do too much damage because you don't damage your goods.
Yeah.
Or he's scared of her.
Okay.
Because obviously if she has killed the mum, she's done it in an unpredictable way.
Yeah.
And obviously with the shard blade sort of like eyes, maybe she has got a shard blade and he's scared that she'll use it on him.
Yes. I'll say at this point you do know she has a shard blade. Because she used to kill Tin.
Yeah, but like this is a flashback.
Yeah, I know,
so
but
like I don't know if she'd have it.
She'd still have it at that point, yeah.
he's clearly scared of her for this.
Yes, yeah.
And that's why he won't touch her, but he'll beat everyone else up.
I think I'm with you there. Like, he's scared to... Firstly, I think she is legitimately his favourite.
Yeah. Well, she's the only one that hasn't really disobeyed him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get that.
And also, yeah, I do think he is scared of her as well, because it's like, yeah, you killed your mother with a shard blade. Like, I don't understand this.
Yeah.
But I do not want a repeat of that with me. So, yeah.
Fair enough. So that's where we leave Shallan.
Yeah.
That was the last flashback for this part. And that leads us to our last character of part 3.
Yes.
Caledon.
Yeah.
More Caledon.
Good old
Love Caledon.
Love Caledon.
So Caledon starts off in the chasms training more bridgemen. And whilst they're doing their training, he goes off and he's just fought the assassin in white at this point. And he wants to work out how he was able to walk along the walls.
Yeah.
So he starts trying to practice that, and he is not very good at it. He just keeps falling straight off.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm rubbish at this, I can't do this. And Syl's like, Cal, it's going to take some time. Like, you're not going to be an expert immediately.
Yeah.
He's had years to do this. This is your first try.
Yeah.
So Caledon goes a bit easier on himself. And he starts trying to work out the different ways in which he could have done it.
Yeah.
And he eventually works out how to walk on the walls.
Yeah.
And he's really proud of himself, and he has a yay moment.
Yeah.
And it's just a really nice moment between him and Syl.
Yeah.
And they're practicing nicely together. And whilst he's doing this, he's talking things over in his mind and out loud to Syl. And he starts talking about how he really wants to kill Amaram because he wants his revenge.
Yeah.
And he falls off the wall immediately.
Ooh. Yes.
And Syl is like, no, mate, that's not honourable. Like, I'm not going to give you my Stormlight if you do unhonourable things like that.
Yeah.
Then in the next scene, Caledon is back at the camp.
Yep.
Well, he's arriving back at the camp.
Yeah.
And everyone's acting really tense. And it's not the normal camp situation.
Yeah.
And Caledon's like, what is going on? And as he walks closer, he gets to the campfire and Renarin is sitting in front of the fire.
Yeah.
He's like, what is this kid doing?
Yeah.
And Renarin's like, hi, Caledon. I want to come and be a bridge member. And Caledon's like, no.
Like, that's not how this works.
Yeah. And Caledon's like, no. And Renarin's like, but I can't really be a soldier. I'm not built for that.
Yeah.
But being a, like, Kingsguard is a good thing.
Yeah.
It will keep me out of the battles. Because I'll be on the guard team, you don't have to worry about guarding me. So it frees up some of your men.
Yeah.
And it means that I'm getting training from, like, the best.
Yeah.
And Caledon's like, you make a good point. I'll talk to your dad about it.
Yeah.
In the meantime, go and clean some pans.
Yeah.
And without any argument, Renarin just goes and does it because he's such a good boy.
Yeah.
And Caledon's like, well, that was strange.
Yeah.
And then Moshe approaches and he's like, what are you doing? He's a light eyes. Why are you letting him in? You know we hate them.
Yeah.
I don't want one of them around me. And Caledon's like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, they're not all bad, and Renarin is actually quite sweet. And look, he's cleaning for us, so not all bad.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we leave that scene.
Yep.
And then in the next Caledon scene, Caledon goes into the Light Eyes training arena, and he takes Moshe, Teft, and Yake.
What's Yake?
One of the disposables.
Oh, he's okay.
And he takes them in to learn how to fight with a shard blade.
Yes.
And Zahil is like, I agree to teach you, Caledon. And Caledon's like, well, these are 3 of my best men. Obviously, it makes more sense for more than just one of us to know, because one of us is going to be with the king at all times.
Yeah.
And Zahir's like, yeah, no, that does make perfect sense. So he starts training them to fight with shard blades. And Caledon's like, I don't want to learn to fight with one. I just want to learn how to...
fight against one.
Yeah. And Zahir's like, okay, we can work with that. It's not ideal, but we can do that.
Yeah.
And Syl's like, thank you for not touching one of those horrible blades. And Caledon's like, don't worry, I don't like using them. So they're practicing for a while. And then Adolin and Renarin are coming in to start their practicing.
Yeah.
And Caledon goes to get a drink of water at the same time as Adolin.
Ooh.
And
Ooh.
It's alright, they're kind of like beginning to build a little bit of a friendship. Like they're bantering mildly at this point. And Adolin is having a drink and they look over and Shallan walks in. And Adolin's like, oh, they always do this. The girls always come in to watch me fight and train, and it's a bit embarrassing, I know. But they just can't resist me. Don't worry, I'll go and kick her out because it's too distracting for the other men. And Caledon's like, you think very highly of yourself, then, mate. And Adolin's like, no, that's just how it is. Always happens. So he starts walking over to Shallan. Yeah. Shallan completely blanks him. Shallan walks up to the head Arden and is talking to her for a bit. And Caledon's like, what was that, mate? And Adolin's like, she must not have noticed me yet. She will in a minute. Yeah. She's clearly here for me. So they go over and Shallan is asking the Arden if she can catalogue all the shard
she wants to sketch all the blatant blades.
Because obviously they don't have good records of them.
Yeah.
So the Ardent agrees as long as she's not getting in people's way. And she's like, oh, hey there, Adolin. And he's like...
oh, so you did notice me then?
Yeah. And he's like, if you're going to get shard blades and plates, I'm here. And she's like, no, I don't need yours. Yeah, got those already.
Got those already, I don't need yours.
He's like, okay. So obviously that she's there doing her sketches, and that's when she invites him for the date where they went to the wine bar.
Oh, okay, yes, because we're telling he's a little bit out of order. Yes.
Yeah. And then at this point, Moshe goes over to Caledon, and he tells Caledon about how he personally hates Elhokar. Yes. Because his grandparents, or is it aunt and uncle? It's his
grandparents. They owned the jewelers.
Yeah. I think it was his grandparents.
I'm pretty sure it was, yeah.
But they owned a jewellery shop in quite a nice area. And they were the only Dark Eyes that had a reputable jewellery shop. And there was a couple of others on the street that were owned by a Light Eyes guy. And he didn't like the fact that they were taking business from him. Yeah. So he set up a dispute, which ended up getting his grandparents put into jail. Yeah. And whilst they were in jail waiting for Elhokar to
decide what to do with them,
they died because of the conditions and the treatment in the jail. So he personally hates Elhokar because he holds Elhokar responsible for that. Yeah. And he wants Elhokar dead. Yeah. At which point Caledon's like, so were you behind the balcony the other day? Yeah. And Moshe's like, we're not talking about that right now. And Caledon's like, but you were. And he's like, I wasn't. Let's not talk about that now. We'll talk about that somewhere quiet. Yeah. And Caledon's like, oh crap.
It's like, oh no.
Oh no.
One of the guys I've got guarding the king is trying to kill the king.
Yeah. So they head back to camp to have some more dinner. Yeah. And as he approaches, Lopen is sitting around with a whole bunch of his cousins now. Mm-hmm. He's got 3 or 4 at this point, and they're all now in Bridge 4. Yeah. And Caledon's like, great, this is getting out of hand. Yeah. And then he takes a spear and he goes over to Shen. Yep. And he's like, you know what, I've spoken to Dalinar, he agrees that you have every right to be armed like the rest of us.
Yeah.
Here's your spear. You can start training with that bridge crew because they're learning the basics at the moment.
Yeah.
I want you to feel like one of us because you are one of us.
Yeah.
And Shen is like, you're a good man, Caledon. And he's like, I try.
Yeah.
I really want to be. And then sort of like Caledon's like main crew
are
like, hey Caledon, come out drinking with us.
Yeah.
And he's like, I probably not. And they're like, no, you're coming out with us. And Moshe chooses the pub.
Yeah.
And as they're drinking, he's like, hey, I'm going to make an excuse for us. We're going to go somewhere quickly.
Yeah.
And Caledon's like, all right, okay. Yeah. So then they go in the back room and he gets to meet Moshe's friends.
Yes.
So the guy in charge of this little group is Graves.
Oh, yes, Graves.
So Graves is like the leader. And he talks about how they just want what's best for a Lefkar. And that would be getting rid of Elhokar and putting Dalinar.
Dalinar.
So that would be getting rid of Elhokar and putting Dalinar on the throne.
Yeah.
Because Dalinar is a much better king than Elhokar. And Caledon really doesn't want to be part of this.
Yeah.
But they're very persuasive and Caledon can completely understand
why they feel this way.
Yeah. And he realises quite quickly that he's not going to be able to get out of this room unless he agrees to join them.
Yeah.
So he does. And as soon as they're out of the room, he's like, Moshe, I don't want you talking to those guys ever again.
Yeah.
You're not part of this anymore. I'm not part of this. No. Like, this can't happen.
Yeah.
So Moshe's like, yeah, sure. I won't ever talk to them again.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So then Caledon goes into the chasms at night by himself. And he starts practicing with Stormlight.
Okay.
And he starts walking up walls. And then he experiments with what happens if he lashes himself to the sky.
Yes.
So he does that and he realises that if he lashes himself to the sky and the ground, he can hover.
Yeah.
And if he keeps going, he can fly.
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I am so up for Caledon flying around everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So up for this. And then when he gets back to the camp, Shen.
Oh my god.
I can't.
What is with you pronouncing E's as E?
I genuinely can't help it.
Did Serene through you that much?
It did. It did. So Shen is there and he's like, I need to leave.
Yeah.
And Caledon's like, oh.
But why?
And he's like, I can't talk about it, but I need to go.
Yeah.
You are a good man. It was nice meeting you. And then he leaves.
And then he's gone. Yeah.
I really liked him.
Shen was really nice.
Yeah. In the next Caledon scene, he's escorting Adolin as he goes on a date with Shallan.
Ooh.
Spicy.
Mm-hmm.
So on their way to pick Shallan up, he is sitting at the top of the carriage with the coachman.
Yes.
He looks over and he's like, hey, you're the guy from the plains. And he's like, yeah, you're the guy I gave my flute to and you lost it. You left it behind, mate. So they're having a little bit of a talk. Heated.
Did we not talk about Wit and Caledon in The Way of Kings?
No.
Man. So they have a chat.
They're having a bit of a bantery chat between the two of them.
Yeah.
And then they get there and they pick Shallan up. And he jumps down off the roof and Adolin's like, you!
Like, what are you doing here, Wit?
And Wit obviously uses the opportunity to insult him. Shallan then comes out of Sebarial's
palace
mansion thing. And she's like, it's you!
and then Wit's like, who?
Yeah. Everyone's like, Shallan, you've literally just got here. How do you know who Wit is?
Yeah.
And she runs up and gives him a hug. And Wit does not know how to act.
Wit is like, Even Wit doesn't really remember.
No. Well, no. Wit remembers.
Yeah.
But he has never had someone excited to see him. And he's like... And she's like, thank you so much for being kind to me on that day.
Yeah.
And Adelin's like, I don't know what's going on here, but I'm not impressed.
Yes. Isn't he like, you just hugged Wit?
Yeah.
And Shallan's like, yeah. And he's like, you just hugged Wit. Yeah.
And it's very much a, why would anyone hug Wit?
Yeah.
So Shallan gets in the carriage and Adelin's like, back off, she's too young for you. And Wit's like, everyone's too young for me. Yes.
And he's like, there's only one woman my age around here, and I don't think she's up for it.
She doesn't like me very much. So Caledon joins them in the carriage, and they're like, what are you doing in here?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I can't leave you two unattended. And he's like, fine. Because at this point, he still thinks that Shallan is trying to assassinate Adolin.
Yeah.
And what better place than when you're alone in a carriage?
Yeah.
So obviously Caledon jumps in with them.
Yep.
And Shallan talks about how she's been doing some research to help Adolin with his duels.
Yeah.
And she says that in his next duel, if he does something really impressive to impress the king can offer him a boon.
Yes.
And that means that he can kind of make any demand that he wants and it will be fulfilled. Yeah. So Caledon's like, this sounds interesting.
Yes.
Make a mental note.
Yes. Caledon is like, yes, the rules to this society, they could be used to benefit me.
Yeah.
And Caledon is wrong.
He's not wrong yet. So they get to the zoo.
Yeah.
And Shallan's happily like sketching all of the different animals in the zoo.
Yeah.
Adolin's just staring at her lovingly because he is very, very in love with her.
Yeah.
And Caledon is just grumpily
being
joining in. And then whilst they are at the zoo, Dalinar arrives.
Yes.
With his best friend Amaram.
Oh, yes!
And Amaram has had a promotion.
Yes.
Amaram now wears a cape of the Knights of Radiance.
Yes.
And it has been decided that he is reforming the Knights of Radiance for Dalinar.
Yeah.
And he is in charge. Caledon is furious.
Understandably so.
He gets back to his camp, and him and
Sadeas.
No.
Sebarial.
No.
Zeth.
No. Sigzil. Him and Sigzil. So Caledon and Sigzil are ranting about it back at camp.
Yeah.
Like, how dare he put him in charge? Doesn't even have the ability to use Stormlight. And Caledon takes this as a, you know what, I'm not going to reveal what I can do anymore because I do not want
Amaram to be in charge of me. Yeah.
And not only that, but I told Dalinar that he stole those from me. Yeah. And Dalinar has promoted him.
Yeah.
Like, he's not as honourable as I thought. I'm angry.
Yeah.
Very angry. And then we get to the next Caledon scene.
Oh yeah, what's the next Caledon chapter, Lucy?
It's the duel.
It's the duel, which is the one of the best parts of the whole Storm Archive is this duel. I love this duel.
It is the best moment.
It's edgy as sea. It is. Let's carry on.
Yes. So Adolin goes out on the dueling ground.
Yeah.
Where he is met by 4 opponents.
Yes.
And he's like, what's going on? I thought it was 2. And the judge is like, no, dude. You said he could bring anyone.
Yeah.
So he's brought 4. Well, he's brought 3 people with him.
Yeah.
So Adolin is now outnumbered.
Yeah.
The duel starts and he's doing quite well, considering.
Okay. Yeah.
And then they outnumber him and he is trying to yield.
Yeah.
They're ignoring him. The judge has been paid off, so she's not hearing him yield. Yeah. And that's when he realizes that they're going to kill him.
Yes, if not kill him, then maim him. He's going to get...
So Dalinar is in the stand and he's angry.
He's like, this is an outrage. Yeah.
the judge won't listen to Dalinar.
Yeah.
And Dalinar's like, well, at this point in the battle, he is completely overrun. He's going to get seriously injured.
Yeah.
Other opponents can join him at this point because that's the duel rules.
Yes.
So Renarin goes to join him.
Renarin runs out.
And Dalinar starts shouting for any other shard bearers to go and help his son.
Yeah.
And they all conveniently look away at this point.
Yes.
Even Amaram, who's supposed to be honourable and wonderful, doesn't want to join in.
Yeah.
And Dalinar just shouts out, does anybody have any honour anymore? And Caledon turns to him and he's like, honour is dead, but I will see what I can do. And jumps down into the arena.
Yes. And it's like, I absolutely lost my mind when that happened.
You were with me in the tent for that moment.
Yeah.
And I was like in the tent screaming about it.
We were on holiday camping. That's why we were in a tent. And you were reading this. And I was reading it over your shoulder because I was like...
it's hard not to.
It's hard not to because it's such a good scene. But, oh my God. And he jumps in and he's like, yeah, honor is dead, I'll see you. And then he goes, if this goes wrongly, look after my men. And it's like, Caledon!
Well, Caledon, being the badass that he is, has just jumped into an arena
with
four shard bearers.
With a spear.
And
that's all he's got.
He's back to back with Adolin. And Adolin's like, dude, you take one. I can handle two. One of them's gone to Renarin. At the moment, we just need to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, because one of them goes to one of them's just kind of messing with Renarin, and the guy who Relis is like, hey, if you this duel is going to go our way because if you fight back too much, our friend over there just might slip and chop off one of Renarin's arms or something. Yeah.
So Caledon is doing an amazing job.
Yeah.
He manages to get his guy to yield.
Yeah.
Adolin gets one of them to yield.
Yeah.
Caledon goes to go and help Renarin because it's not going too well for him at this point. Adolin's fighting one.
Yeah. I think Caledon's like, the guy that Caledon beats, he goes, hey, that shard plate's mine, right? And he's like, and he's like, give me the helmet. He's like, give me a helmet.
Yeah. So then he's using the shard helmet as a shield.
Yeah.
He gets Renarin to yield, so Renarin is now out of danger.
Yeah.
He's fighting the shard bearer.
Yeah.
He's destroying shard plates.
Yeah.
And the guy is shocked because obviously this guy is unarmed.
Yeah.
He's not wearing
a spear.
Yeah, but he's not wearing shard plates and he's punching the shard plates and destroying them.
Yeah.
Best moment.
Yeah.
And he does a clap and he catches the shard
Like
blade.
Dalinar did.
Like it's the most amazing moment.
Yeah.
And that guy, he gets to yield.
Yeah.
And then him and Adolin are fighting the last guy together.
Yeah.
And they eventually win.
Yeah. I will say, I absolutely... So, one of the reasons I love this fight, I love the lead up to it. And in writing, this is like a writerly thing. In writing, when you're writing an action scene, it's generally not recommended you write every single movement that every single person makes. Because that's boring. Is the common wisdom in writing. Yeah. But this duel... Every single movement that every single character makes is written down, and it's because every move is important.
Yeah. Like,
any move could be Caledon's last. Any move could be Renarin's last. And like, everything Caledon is doing is cool. Everything that Adolin is doing is cool. So Brandon writes every movement, and you're on the edge of your seat because you're like, this could go any way for any of these characters the whole time. Yeah. And I love this duel. I absolutely adore it. This
is so good.
This is a masterclass in action. Because there's another thing. It wouldn't be so hype if it wasn't for the context around it. Like, there is so much on the line here where that's the important thing is these characters could die and it wouldn't derail the plot of the book if for one of these characters to die or get maimed. Yeah. So there is legitimately risk for these characters because I adore this entire sequence. This feels like the actual climax of the book for me.
So they win.
Yep.
Elhokar is amazed because how can you not be?
Yeah.
So he offers a boon, at which point Adolin challenges Sadeas right here, right now.
To a duel.
Yeah. To the end.
Yeah.
And Sadeas is panicking. Caledon then immediately demands his own.
Yeah.
And he demands that
He challenged Amaram. Right now.
Because Amaram stole his shard blades and plates, and he wants to duel him for them.
Yeah.
At which point, Elhokar gets very angry that a Dark Eyes has spoken to him in such a way.
Yeah.
And demands that Caledon is put to death.
Yeah.
And in this sort of moment, Savius is able to slip out.
Yeah.
So they've lost him now.
Mm-hmm.
Elhokar is furious that Caledon has ruined everything. He wants him dead at this point.
Yeah. Dalinar convinces him not to execute him.
Yeah.
Dalinar.
Manages to talk Elhokar down.
Yeah.
It's when I'm about to say those two names together.
Yeah.
I can't do them together. He talks Elhokar down into just putting him in prison, which he unwillingly agrees to.
Yeah.
So then Caledon is taken off and put in jail. And at this point, he is very mad about Light Eyes and the injustices.
Yeah.
And how they just don't seem to care.
Yeah. And that's where we leave Caledon for part 2, right?
Yeah, he's left to stew on that.
Yeah, he just left in jail.
Oh boy.
Cool. Interludes.
Interludes.
Very,
right.
After that hype, whew, let's finish off with some interludes, because yes, this looks like this video is just going to be part 3.
Yeah, it has to be.
It has to be.
So the first interlude is Lift.
Yeah. Oh, you finally met Lift!
Finally met Lift.
Yes!
And my notes just have a big old no next to them.
What, do you not like Lift?
I love Lift.
Oh. So what's the no about this?
So, I'm not going to be talking about Lift.
Okay.
Because I read Edge Dancer after this book.
You pretty much read it immediately after this book, yeah.
And the prelude for the prologue for Edge Dancer is the interlude from this book.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Oh, so you read... Yeah, so that's only in some copies. So
in my copy...
Then, okay, cool. So you're just going to...
That's the prologue. So I'm just going to talk about that whole section as its own video. Yeah,
we're going to do a mini episode. Well, it's probably going to be still like 40 minutes, but it's going to be like a mini episode between Words of Radiance and Oathbringer where we talk about Edge Dancer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to talk about Lift until Edge Dancer.
Cool.
We then have Zeth.
A nice little Zeth.
It's a very short interlude for Zeth, who is sitting on top of Irafu.
Yeah!
Kind of.
You're like 90% of the way there.
He's sitting on top of the big tower.
Yeah.
Contemplating what's just happened.
Yeah.
Because the reason that he was made truthless is that he said that the Radiants were coming back.
Yeah.
He was told that he was wrong. And because he was without truth, he was exiled.
Yes.
But upon meeting Caledon, it's been confirmed that he's not truthless.
Yeah.
And he was right all along. And so he now is going to go back and seek the truth.
Yeah.
And that's where we leave him.
Okay. We go back to the Shattered Plains and seek the truth.
No, go back to
Taravangian?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Well, we don't really know. He kind of
he just kind of says, I need to go back and seek truth. Okay, cool.
And then the last one is Ashoni.
Yeah.
Who is trying to get rid of her spreen and it won't go away.
Yeah.
Spren.
Yeah. Which Spren?
It's a storm Spren.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's a black and red Spren.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's of Odium.
Okay.
But it's not spoken about again, so it doesn't tell you.
Yeah.
So she's trying to get rid of her Spren.
Yeah.
It won't go away. And she goes to meet with the members of
The Five?
The Five?
Yes.
And she very passionately tells them about how everybody needs to adapt storm form so that there's enough of them to summon a storm.
Yes.
When they, do the final battle with the humans. At which point the Five are mostly like, look, we're not 100% okay with the changes in you, Ashoni.
Yeah.
You're really different now. And it's not for the best.
Yeah.
We've already given you 3,000 storm troops at this point.
Yeah.
Do you really need more? And she's like, everybody.
She needs everyone.
Everybody must take this form.
Yeah.
It's the most superior form. How can you not want to be this?
Yeah.
So then they're like, well, we'll have a vote on it, shall we? Come back another day, we'll talk about it more.
And she's like, no.
Well, she leaves.
Yeah.
And she immediately starts going up to the other Parshendi, and she's like, yo, who's with me? If you're with me, be with me. If you're not, go and stand over there.
Yeah.
So she starts asking every single Parshendi, and her storm form are going out doing this as well.
Yeah.
Whether they're willing to take storm form. Anyone that is left to sort of do their thing. Anyone that's not is rounded up.
Yeah.
And she is going to kill them.
Yes.
And then the head of her sort of old army unit approaches her, and he's like, Ashoni, you're not you anymore.
What's going on?
I don't want to take this form, and neither does anyone from your old unit. And she's like, well, then you can go and join the others over there. And he's like, but you're going to kill us. It's quite obvious.
Yeah.
And she's like, this is what needs to be done. And then he's like, you realise your mum is over there, Ashoni?
Yeah.
At which point I think like the old her manages to like take hold for a minute.
Yeah.
Because she then tells her old unit to guard.
Yeah.
The
group of listeners.
Yeah. Like, they're not prisoners, but like they essentially are.
Yeah.
And then she's talking to
Venli.
And Venli is like, hey, the guys that don't agree with us have escaped.
Yes, they all run away.
Yeah, and she's like, they're not worth it, leave them.
Yeah.
We need as many troops as we can for this storm form.
Yeah.
And they start arguing, because Venli is more extreme than Ashoni.
Yes.
And she wants to kill Venli, but obviously they've got this big crowd audience, and Venli is looked very highly upon.
Yes.
So she can't kill Venli, and Venli is the only one that can capture. Well, Venli
knows the secrets of capturing Sebarial. Yeah.
So obviously she can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And that's where we leave Ashoni for this chapter. Terrifying.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the end of part 3 and the interludes.
The only sort of question I have left at the end of this is what happened to those runaway Parshendi?
Very good question.
Because we don't encounter them again in this book.
They leave.
Yeah.
And they kind of go off and do their own thing on the Shadow Plains. There is hints to what they're up to in Oathbringer.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Hints.
I didn't want this to be like the girls.
No.
They're just never spoken of again.
Yeah, though they're very much not talked about directly in Oathbringer, but there is hints at their presence. We'll talk about that. Like, cool. You might not even pick up on it because it's very, very, very quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. That's fine.
But yeah,
as long as they are actually spoken about again.
I mean, this is Venli and Ashoni's mother is in this group.
Yeah.
And I don't know about book 4, but book 4 is Ashoni's book.
Yeah.
It's Venli and Ashoni's books. They're going to be in the flashbacks. Is going to be focusing on them.
Yeah.
So their mother is definitely a character that will come back. There's no way you can have a book focusing on those characters.
Yeah.
And not have their mother turn up.
I don't know. He doesn't seem to regard mothers very highly.
That's fair.
He doesn't even name them.
Yeah, that's fair. And so I think their mother's not actually named, is she? No, she's not.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Despite being a character on screen, doesn't get a name.
It wouldn't surprise me.
But yeah, that's cool. So that's us for this week. Next week we'll try and do 4 and 5 together. But
I think 4 and 5 will work together.
I mean 3 is it's a massive part. I think it's the largest single part of any of the books.
It definitely had the most chapters.
Yeah.
And there's quite a lot of different viewpoints.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Whereas part 4, the majority of part 4 is Caledon mixed with Shallan.
Yeah.
Like there isn't too much outside of that.
And then 5's a big battle, so yeah, we should be good. Cool. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. What do you guys think of the duel? Is it the best thing So follow us on 17shard.com, follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Follow us on LinkedIn because, you know, we can be professional together on there. Follow us on Patreon, give us money, because not only does that support us in general, we've actually started giving these videos to patrons early. And so you get these a few days early, basically as soon as I finish editing them, if you're a patron. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye!
Bye. And then is the next one a meeting? Just give me a sec. Oh my god! Oh my god! So then the next scene is Shallan.